Okay, let me start with a statistic that well, it should really stop you in your tracks. Just think about the platforms you check all the time, that stream of updates, the opinions, headlines, all of it. If we just look at one single major global social media platform, how many pieces of content, how many updates do you think are published worldwide in just 1 minute? 60 seconds. Think about all those voices, all demanding attention right now.
And that's the perfect launch pad for this deep dive, because I think most of us get that there's a lot of information out there, but we wildly underestimate the sheer scale, the velocity of it all.
The scale is what changed everything, isn't it? The answer, and this is based on the research we've been pulling from our source material, is it's just staggering. Over 1,700 distinct tweets are published globally, every single minute. That data point, by the time I finish saying that sentence, is already outdated by thousands.
1,700 in the time it takes you to, blink a few times. And that figure is really the core of what we're looking at today. When information scientists look at this constant, relentless torrent of data, this stream that never, ever lets up, they've actually defined it. They call it the global digital flow. It's essentially a massive data wave.
And our mission today, drawing heavily from the material called data wave, faster than comprehension, is to really dissect this wave. We need to unpack what it's made of, how it keeps up that incredible speed, and most importantly, what the science says about how this speed is fundamentally affecting, well, the way our brains work.
Yeah, and it's crucial we jump right into that volume. When we say 1,700 updates a minute, we aren't talking about old data being archived somewhere. This is real time. It's happening right now. As you are sitting there listening to us, thousands upon thousands of voices, opinions, headlines, they're all actively being thrown into the digital space.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little. What is the nature of this flow? It's not just plain text, is it? The material seems to suggest this content is highly optimized.
For speed, yes. That's what's so fascinating. The content of this flow, whether it's a quick share, a reaction GIF, a tiny micro opinion, it's all highly compressed. It's information that's been streamlined for maximum emotional impact and minimum comprehension time. The sources tell us it's mostly packaged emotions, raw opinions, and urgent summarized news, all designed for an immediate reaction right inside that 60-second window.
So you have hyper-compressed content moving at this just unprecedented speed. The result, I guess, is that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. It really feels like the whole world is getting louder, aggressively louder. Every single year.
It is numerically louder. And to help you grasp the magnitude of this constant noise, we found an illustrative detail in the source material that really hammered it home for me. Think about an entire major city like, say, New York or London. Imagine all the noise there. The traffic, the construction, every local news broadcast, every single conversation on the street happening at once. It's a huge, overwhelming sound environment.
Right, got it. Just a massive amount of input that your brain is constantly trying to filter out.
Exactly. Now, compare that physical city to one single minute online. The sources state that a single minute of this digital flow contains more distinct voices, more opinions, more prompts for action than that entire bustling city.
Wow.
That is the true scale of the data pressure we are all absorbing. It's not background hum. It becomes this dominant, inescapable feature of our cognitive environment.
That analogy, that completely changes the perspective on it. It means just existing online, even if you're just passively scrolling, is like trying to have a thoughtful conversation while standing in the middle of a giant shouting city.
Precisely. And the human being is simply not built for that. Not to conduct business, sustain friendships, absorb complex politics, not in a sound environment of that magnitude.
Okay, so this leads us right to the critical question then, the cognitive mismatch. If the volume is like an entire city shouting at us every minute, why does it feel less like useful information and more like just chaos?
The answer is in our biology. The fundamental problem, and this is the key insight from the material, is that the human brain, our brains, developed over millennia, are just not designed to cope with this quantity and this velocity of information at the same time. Our evolutionary wiring prioritizes slower, deliberate input. It needs time to integrate things.
So when the brain gets data at this persistent city-level volume, it can't file it away as new facts to learn. There's just no time to process one fact before the next one hits. It can't integrate it.
That's absolutely right. I mean, integration, or what some call assimilation, requires time. It requires critical thought, connecting new data to what you already know. When data comes at this speed, the biological consequences, well, the research is clear. The brain quickly moves from trying to understand to simply surviving the input. It processes this high, relentless volume as continuous noise.
Continuous noise. So it stops being information. It just becomes a sensory distraction that never, ever ends. And this defines that central conflict, right? The global digital flow is just fundamentally faster. I mean, way faster than our human capacity for comprehension. We're trying to drink from a fire hose, and someone keeps turning up the pressure, but our mouths stay the same size.
And that speed differential is everything. Think about the difference between acknowledgement and assimilation. Acknowledgement is just registering something exists, a quick nod before you scroll past it. Assimilation is the deep processing, the critical evaluation, the thing that allows a fact to actually change your worldview. The flow only rewards acknowledgement.
So if the ecosystem only rewards that quick nod, then the vast majority of those 1,700 plus updates per minute, they aren't actually being heard. They're just adding to the static pressure. That sounds less like communication and more like, I don't know, environmental condition.
Precisely. And this is where we have to connect this to the bigger picture. This isn't just about feeling overwhelmed or, needing a digital detox. The speed comprehension gap, this reality that the flow is faster than our ability to assimilate. It has profound, active, and transformative implications for us, for our species.
So it's not a passive thing. The sources are very clear on this. The speed of the data isn't just annoying, it's actively reshaping us.
Absolutely. The global digital flow is actively restructuring three very specific fundamental areas of human function. If you take away anything from this deep dive, these 3 points, how the flow changes our thinking, our reactions, and our reality, are the ones you really need to carry forward.
Okay, let's spend some time on these. How does the flow first reshape the way we think?
Well, it essentially creates new neural pathways that prioritize speed over depth. Deep sequential thinking, the kind that uses your prefrontal cortex for complex problems, that requires sustained focus. But when your environment is delivering urgent, compressed input every few seconds, the brain is neurologically conditioned to use the faster, more reactive parts, like the limbic system.
So the system is training us to be perpetually reactive, not contemplative. The moment a complex idea is introduced, another 1,700 pieces of content have already screamed for our attention, pulling us away from any kind of sustained focus.
That is the mechanism. The architecture of the flow favors the quick reaction, the instant share, the immediate, often emotional judgment. The sources point out that deep contemplation becomes physically harder because the brain starts to see it as inefficient. Why spend 5 minutes thinking about a nuanced policy when 100 other urgent, emotionally charged items have already flown past?
It's like a survival mechanism against the information overload. We develop a kind of cognitive short circuit where we judge the headline instead of reading the article.
Exactly. And that leads directly into the second profound implication. It reshapes our immediate reactions and responses. Because the flow is continuous noise, and because we're being trained to be reactive, our cognitive defense mechanism often flips straight to confrontation.
We lose that critical buffer zone, that space between input and output. If you only have a millisecond to decide whether to react, critical evaluation is it's impossible.
It is impossible. We react to the emotional compression in those updates before we can evaluate their source, their truth, their context. What's fascinating about the speed of the flow is that it prioritizes emotional contagion over factual communication.
Emotional contagion. So you see a highly charged post, and before your rational brain can even kick in, the emotion of that post has already infected your reaction. It compels you to reply or share it instantly.
That's the engine for perpetual conflict online. If we are trained by the flow to react instantly to compressed, highly polarized emotions, we just eliminate empathy. We eliminate nuance. The source material suggests the speed gap encourages tribalism. You don't have time to consider an opposing viewpoint, only to register that it exists, it's hostile, and it must be countered immediately.
That makes perfect sense. Slowness allows for empathy. Speed demands reaction.
Yeah.
If the whole environment is engineered for speed, empathy becomes a casualty.
Okay, so that's two profound changes. Our thinking gets shortcutted, and our reactions become purely emotional. What's the third area being reshaped?
The third is our actual sense of reality. If the flow is faster than our ability to assimilate, we're forced to construct our worldview from fragmented, compressed, context-free little bits of input. We are trying to build a stable map of the world using constantly shifting 60-second snapshots.
And if the snapshots are designed for emotional urgency, not comprehensive truth, then the map we build has to be, fundamentally distorted. It is. The sources show that our sense of what's real, what's important, what the consensus is, it's formed not by deep inquiry, but by the pressure and speed of this continuous stream of filtered noise. I
Hmm.
mean, think about what happens when something goes viral. It reaches that critical mass, not because it's true, but because its design made it high velocity.
So the speed of dissemination, which is driven by that emotional compression, becomes the de facto metric for importance. And for truth, we mistake high volume for high consensus.
Precisely. And because the speed is constantly demanding our acknowledgement, our sense of reality becomes unstable. Everything feels urgent, yet nothing feels fully grasped. The digital environment forces us into a state of perpetual cognitive catch-up, and the anxiety that comes from that. That's the consequence of being constantly reminded that the world is moving too fast for you to understand it.
And this is why understanding this global digital flow is the critical shortcut for you, the listener. It explains the entire current information environment. We're not just dealing with new devices, we are dealing with a new cognitive state, one that's been induced by a data volume and velocity that, the human brain was just never built to handle.
We have to internalize that, this continuous noise, this constant pressure.
Yeah.
It's the default setting now. It impacts everything from how easily we're distracted to our political discourse to our collective mental health. The fact that this flow is faster than assimilation is the single most important diagnostic element of modern digital life.
So to summarize the crucial findings from the sources we've looked at today, we have the staggering scale, over 1,700 updates a minute, a volume that exceeds an entire city. We have the biological diagnosis. The brain interprets this as continuous destructive noise. And we have the profound consequence. This flow is fundamentally faster than human assimilation, and it is actively reshaping our thought patterns, our reactions, and our very sense of reality.
It's a sobering realization for sure, but understanding the rules of
Hmm.
this pressure cooker, is the first step toward building strategies to resist the noise and reclaim some cognitive control.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to carry forward as you navigate this torrent of data today. We've established that the brain interprets the vast majority of the data flow as just continuous noise, mere static that has to be filtered out.
And this raises an essential and I think provocative question for you to consider. If the overwhelming majority of voices, headlines, and opinions are processed only as noise, what tremendous sustained effort must be required for any single voice, any genuine nuanced insight to manage to cut through all that static and achieve meaningful, lasting human comprehension?
It challenges us to reconsider the value equation entirely, doesn't it? If speed fundamentally equals noise in our current environment, perhaps deliberate slowness is the only true path left back to finding the signal.